You're listening to the 40 Thrive Podcast, the show created for women 40 and beyond, ready to shake things up. And now, your host, Jackie McDougall.
Welcome back to another episode of the 40 Thrive Podcast. Now, unless you're living under a rock, you know October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But before you run out and buy that pink kitchen utensil or a bottle of pink alcohol, take a listen to this episode. Dr. Suzanne Gilberg-Lenz is here, and we talk the truth about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Find out where your money actually goes when you donate or buy one of these products. You may be surprised. And we provide actual things you can do this month that will support your own health and those around you. I promise there's some really powerful stuff here. Plus, Dr. Suzanne shares her own experience being diagnosed with breast cancer 6 years ago, even after doing, quote, everything right. And she shares resources and nonprofits that actually do great things, not just take donations and spend 80% of it on marketing and admin costs. So let's dive right into the conversation with Dr. Suzanne Gilberg-Lenz. We're in October now.
Yes.
And you know what that means.
Yes.
Everything is pink.
Ugh, so
You're
gross.
wearing pink.
Oh my God, I am. I didn't even think about
So
it.
I have my own feelings about Breast Cancer
I'm sure you
Awareness
do.
Month, but let's go to yours because you're an actual breast cancer
Yes,
survivor.
I am.
OBGYN.
Real life.
Like you see it professionally, you've seen it personally. You're just celebrating 6 years.
Yeah, in October.
Cancer-free.
Oddly enough, during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which
Wow.
I don't know, I wasn't really focusing on that at the time.
Right. Take me back though, 6 years.
Yeah.
To when you were diagnosed. And just give a little bit of your experience.
Yeah, well, it was pretty interesting because, you know, I already at that point had been in practice for quite some time. I knew a lot about breast cancer. I had a really close relationship actually with one of the renowned breast cancer oncologists here in California. She would send me a lot of her premenopausal breast cancer patients because she just felt like I related to them well. And so I kind of had to learn on the job. I sort of had this niche. I didn't learn this stuff. I mean, I taught myself. I learned from her. I studied.
Who is that doctor?
Philomena McAndrew.
That's my doctor.
Right. She's actually internationally renowned.
Yes, she's
and
amazing.
she is so fabulous in every possible way.
I always like to say, yeah, she was on Oprah, but she's more honored.
Oh,
by
was
being
she on
my
Oprah?
doctor.
That's so funny. But she is. She's the kind of person who would be on Oprah.
Yeah.
However, and I don't mean that, she is unbelievable. She's one of the smartest people I have ever met in my life. I met her as a resident.
And she walks into a room and
she's so gorgeous.
Well, she is absolutely stunning, but she also makes you feel like she has no other patient.
You're the only person in the room. She totally knows everything about you. She's so loving and so caring, and then she's totally on top of the science. But she also has a great way of just sort of dealing with you as a human. She ended up becoming my oncologist. I mean, is the thing, and which, much to all of our chagrin, nobody was excited about this. But she's funny with me too, because I'll have my own opinions medically about stuff, and she just is so loving and patient with me about my things as a doctor patient. Ugh, nobody wants a doctor as a patient.
But I remember you writing something about this. And you were like, I'm doing all the right things. You are not only a medical doctor, but practice in Ayurveda and all this other stuff. And here you are diagnosed.
At that point, I'd been meditating for probably more than 10 years, doing yoga, Ayurvedic practitioner, leading what I considered to be as clean and green a life as I could possibly imagine doing in a large city, living the stressful life I was living. I mean, we had remodeled our home. It was a green remodel with, no volatile organic compounds like that. Really.
Right.
Xeriscaped, we're really in a desert here in LA. My landscaping is all native plants, so I'm not sucking the life out of the planet with too much water. I'm organic.
Yeah.
We had a, organic garden and everything.
Yeah. You're one of those caricatures from LA.
It was so ridiculous. But yeah, I am actually, I was. And, I felt, and here is the other thing. I was 47 and I didn't really have what I considered much of a family history that increased my risk. I'm Ashkenazi Jewish, but it didn't seem like we had a lot of ovarian and breast cancer, although in retrospect, we don't have a lot of females on the side of my family that has cancer. And I was kind of in this mode of I don't even know if I want to do my mammograms every year. I'm just being honest.
Wow.
And actually, I had done my mammogram that year and it was normal. And by the summer, I could feel something under my underarm. And this is so interesting. Like, if you would have come to me as my patient, I would have been like, yeah, you need to get that checked out. And I would have been the way I am, which is like, it's fine, you're going to be fine. But in my mind, I'd be like, bitch has cancer, for sure.
Geez.
I wouldn't have transmitted that to you, but I've been like, that's cancer.
Yeah.
I mean, hello, how many breast cancers have I diagnosed?
Right.
Plenty. I felt it and I was like, doesn't feel right. My daughter's bat mitzvah's coming. I'm not going to ruin that shit for myself. I mean, that's literally my thought process.
Yeah.
How crazy.
But maybe helps you understand your patients now.
I mean, I understood my patients before.
Yeah.
Even now, I'm like,
But even
okay,
more so.
I know how crazy you are.
Yeah.
It wasn't crazy. It was my coping. So, and it wasn't like it was 5-6 months from then. It was like 6 weeks.
Okay.
So I got through the bat mitzvah and I felt it again. And I was like, okay, got to do this. And I, went in and I was 9 months from a normal mammogram.
Wow.
And he biopsied me right away. And I was like, oh. So anyways, that was breast cancer. And one of the things that I did do, I mean, I really had to grieve and mourn a lot, like who I thought I was, what I thought my body could and couldn't do, sort of this perfectionism that was just a complete illusion. Like, if I did everything right, nothing bad would happen to me.
Right.
And I did write about it.
Yes.
That was, I think the title of it was "I Did Everything Right and I Still Got Breast Cancer."
Yes, I'm going to link to that.
People went crazy on it. Like I think there were like 10,000 hits or something. It was nuts. I was like, whoa. I mean, obviously I struck a nerve here.
Right.
So, and it was really intense. Obviously, duh, I had cancer. It was intense.
Right.
How stupid does that
so
sound?
you went through treatment.
Yeah. So a couple of things that I did that I really was happy about was I did go back to my roots in Ayurveda. I immediately called in my Ayurvedic community and they really supported me in like coming and helping me like retool how I ate and what I was cooking. I really doubled down on like body work practices and healing modalities and meditation for a number of reasons. The surgery couldn't happen for about a month, which I think was great because in my case, like, and this has happened a lot with patients, they'll be like, okay, next week we're going to do this. No, it's almost never an emergency. Like, I need to feel healthy.
Right.
And then they didn't have all the information they needed to make the decision. So it ended up being a blessing. I had like a month, which was rough, but it was better for me.
But I want to stop for a second because that it's never often an emergency because the cancer in 4 weeks is not going to
Look, if you already have stage 4 disease, you're going to want to act right away. I had early disease, most likely. I mean, we didn't know for sure till you have surgery. You don't know, but it was clear that it probably was, and it was a quote, good prognostic, type in terms of the pathology on the biopsy.
When I love when people say, well, if you're going to have cancer, this is the one to have.
Yeah. People say really stupid things to be nice. And you're like, that's not cool.
Yeah. You're like, no, I don't think any cancer is the one to have.
Well, the other thing that I did also was I allowed my closest friends and family to sort of circle the wagons. And then they were like, we'll deal with everybody else. Like, you need to deal with yourself and take care of yourself.
Nice.
And, my kids were young teens. It was like super scary for them.
Right.
I mean, my daughter, when I told my kids, my daughter was like 13 and she literally said, are you going to lose all your hair? Like, I didn't even know what my treatment plan was going to be. And she ran out of the room crying. Like, the thought of her mother not looking like her mother was so scary to her.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really, my son tried to be the man. I mean, he was amazing, but he was really angry. It was rough. I ended up having the best kind of breast cancer, whatever that means. There's nothing wood in here. There it is. Fake wood. I had a lumpectomy, and then I had radiation, and now I'm on medication. And, that was a whole journey too of really having to let go of how much work I was doing and really take care of myself and take time off and limit my schedule and put myself first. I mean, this is where a lot of this self-care stuff comes from, right?
Yes.
Because it was life-saving for me.
And you even said before we started recording that, it was something that was such a positive thing to happen.
It ended up,
it's changed your life.
It was such a gift. It was such a wake-up call. I have a lot of stories about that because I had these weird premonitions about it. I was really actually very unhappy in my life at that time. I was very, very, very stressed, very overwhelmed, felt like I was on a treadmill that I couldn't get off of. And I actually had the thought, you are going to need to get breast cancer in order to stop this. Isn't that bizarre?
Wow.
That literally came into me. It's more than one occasion in the year preceding it. Of course, I already had breast cancer and I just didn't know it.
Right.
So I just changed everything. And, my my husband at the time and I really looked at our marriage. We were struggling in the marriage already. And we really, over the course of that year, made the decision to end the marriage. Like we really tried to like look at what's going on. What have we done? What can we do? And it was like, ultimately for me, I felt like the stress of the marriage was not healthy for me. And I didn't see us being able to change enough to stay together to make it work in a way that was going to be healthy for me. Mm-hmm. And I kind of stopped centering him and the whole family. And that was hard because I put myself first, which is what you're not supposed to do as a mother.
Right. Well, especially with young teens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was hard.
But what happened when you did?
I was really relieved. There was a period of time that was very difficult in transition, but immediately I knew it was the right decision. And, if you talk to people who have made major life decisions like that, usually when you're in the like drama and the panic, that is not the time to make a decision.
Right.
It's time when you feel calm and you're like, that's the right thing. And that is what happened for me. Over time, what has happened is, 6 years down the line, like my kids are awesome. Like I didn't ruin them or their lives, it turns out. We always communicated, and I felt like we communicated even more openly following that because I did a lot of work on myself to sort of recover from the whole thing. And I think that for me, being in a difficult marriage was like a lot of hiding and lying. Like, oh, everything's great, including to your kids, even though they live in the house with you.
Right. They could feel it.
Yeah, hello. This went from breast cancer to divorce, but that's okay. For me, they were linked.
That's the name of your book.
Right. All the fun stuff.
You heard it here first, people.
Oh my God, it's scary. So it ended up being like, and I just sort of really had to get down to basics. And I had a rough couple years where I was really like dismantling my personality, not my personality, but like who I thought I was, what I'd constructed for all of you, and figuring out what I was and who I was. And what I've been able to build since then is like really, really, really me, which includes gray hair.
Right. Which looks amazing.
So the thing that Breast Cancer Awareness Month does that I don't like.
Yes.
Because if this is a story that gets out and touches somebody, that's totally worth it. And if this helps someone figure it out or find resources or get assistance or just a little nugget that soothed them and they don't feel so isolated,
right.
Great.
Right.
The thing that has happened is this whole pink washing thing, which I already was grossed out by before I had breast cancer, by the way.
Yeah, I will say that whoever started the marketing should be hired. Like, I would hire them in a second because this is honestly one of the biggest marketing campaigns you can
100%
find anywhere.
The problem is that it rarely does what people think it's doing. So this is one of the big problems. And there's this big effort now, I think it's called #CureKomen. So with all due respect to the Susan G. Komen Foundation for being early adopters, the fact is they spend less than 20% of what they take in on research or supporting actual direct service to breast cancer patients.
Wow.
So that means that more than 80% of it is going toward their marketing, their events, their administrative costs, their executives. It's disgusting. Yeah. And the thing is that people who are donating don't realize that.
Right.
And the people who really need the help, patients who have metastatic disease, stage 4 disease, who are living longer and we need more treatments, and younger diagnoses, like these are people that really deserve the funding to be going toward them.
Right.
Research, services, cure whatever, treatment. I'm not going to talk about cure. And there are organizations like the Dr. Susan Love Foundation, Share It, which does direct services to people. They're a Jewish organization. They serve everybody. There are other campaigns out there that are actually doing stuff. And women who are survivors and families of survivors are really fed up with the bullshit, to be honest. Or if you're a company that creates a product that is toxic, that maybe is linked to the cause of cancer, but you have a pink ribbon. Ew.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but I don't want
cancel
Mike's Hard Lemonade to be pink. Or maybe it already is pink. I don't know. But and now Mike's will never be a sponsor of this podcast, but I wouldn't have said yes anyway. But the point is, there's so much crap in that ultimately, I'm not saying that I am okay. Let's just be clear. I'm not saying that if you drink one of those, you will have cancer.
No.
But it's certainly not doing anything to prevent it.
No.
No,
Roundup. No, they're not. They're not a pink
Monsanto.
washer. Right.
pink. No, but it's true, especially like processed foods and alcohol and all of these things that
a
are
lot of the really
actually known to contribute.
Yeah, it's really
And then
gross.
they throw a pink. And then how much do they actually give back? That's
I
the
have
other
no
question.
idea. I mean, I'm sure you can find that information somewhere.
Yeah.
The only information I have stats on is the Komen thing. Because that just makes people mad.
Yeah.
That's making people mad.
And I've seen people too where like, multi-level marketing people who are like, I'm going to give X amount back. Are you... I don't know. I don't mean to be negative about the whole thing. I think...
Well, it just reminds people to be very conscious of where they're putting their attention, whether that's their energy, their time, their money.
Right.
And I think the other thing that happens...
Be conscientious about it.
Yeah, just be mindful, just like you would with hopefully anything else. I mean, one of the things that I have talked about around this, because I experienced it, and people don't want to hear this, but I think as a breast cancer survivor, I can say this. If you're doing something to make yourself feel better, think twice. This is not about you. Honestly.
Tell me a little more about that.
Like, I think that part of the motivation for like being super visible and like going on a 3-day walk that raises money for, where is that money going? Like, I'm not against people doing things and having fun and like, melding like marketing with good work and fun. I'm not against that. Yeah. But I think if really what you're doing here is I feel good about myself. I did this good thing. Just make sure you really know what you're doing. Let's put it this way. Okay. Because if you're just making yourself feel good, that's all you did. And just own that and just say, I just made myself feel good because I really didn't do anything for breast cancer.
Right.
If, for instance, if you are donating to Komen or,
Right.
So I know that sounds really harsh and ungrateful, but I don't really care.
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel.
I love that about you.
I do care. That's not true. I totally care. I'm so sensitive. But I don't care enough to not say it.
Right. Well, and I think it's really important to talk about. But instead of making this episode about like, okay, that all that pink washing is BS and blah, blah, blah. Let's come up with how you should spend October.
Wow.
Well, what are some of the ways that you can actually make an impact for people who are suffering from breast cancer?
Okay, so I mentioned a couple of organizations, and maybe you can get those up. So if you really want, Susan Love is one of the most important breast cancer surgeons out there, partly because she very early on started educating people about breast health. Mm-hmm. So number one, you can understand your own breasts. Okay, you can do breast exams. If you have a period, do it after your period's done. You'll be less lumpy, bumpy, tender. You can be responsible about your breast health. You can get your breast imaging if you're from a family that is high risk, or if you're 40 and above. Mm-hmm. Okay? So number one, take care of yourself. Number two, if you want to involve yourself in the community and helping and supporting others, just do a little tiny bit of legwork. In fact, we'll do it for you even. And make sure that you are donating your time, money, and efforts to an organization that you understand what the goal is. And then I think the other thing is, honestly, health starts with overall. It's not just your breasts, and it's the planetary health. It's what we're consuming, both food, drink, air, chemicals, media, what we're putting into our brains, what we're putting into our thoughts, what we're putting into our hearts, what we're putting out. Stress has a huge impact on all kinds of cancers and chronic diseases. So when we're stressed, our immune system doesn't work as well and doesn't kind of go through our body getting rid of little baby cancer cells. And so if you're super stressed, you're going to increase your risk of all disease. And do you really want to impose that on other people? So maybe think about what's coming out of your person toward other people. And then last, if you want to help people who maybe don't have what you have, Planned Parenthood is one of the most important sources of general women's health for women who don't have insurance in this country. Mm-hmm. Support Planned Parenthood. They do I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of mammograms a year.
Right.
So support organizations that care for women that don't have the same kind of access to care that maybe your podcast listeners do.
Right.
So that's a lot of different things people could do.
Yeah. So be mindful when you're donating. Live this is my favorite one, where it's live your life in a way that would prevent breast cancer.
Yeah.
Whether it's decreasing stress, move more, look at what you put into your body.
Yeah.
All of that. I think that's amazing. And third, to, go out. Well, what did you say third?
I don't know what the order was, but help other people.
Help other people.
And then organize. I don't know what I say.
Oh, yeah. Planned
and
Parenthood.
imaging. Take care of yourself and your imaging.
Planned Parenthood. But I want to add a fourth one, too.
Yeah.
It's like there are women every day. And so whether it's breast cancer or maybe it's something else, and they're, you know, it's your neighbor or somebody who lives 2 streets over, or it's a friend of a friend, like buy a grocery store gift card or a DoorDash gift card or whatever it is that you can do to, like, even anonymously. I think that would be an amazing way to...
Meal provision is a huge thing for a million reasons. You know, when I was going through radiation treatment, so I worked all day. My ex-husband now, but my husband at the time was on location. He was a producer, and he was in Utah for most of it, not because he's a jerk, but because I needed him to be working.
Right.
And I had 2 teenagers, so it was crazy. So I was working. I'd finish at like 3:34, go to radiation, come crawl in bed. It was so intense, and this is for like 6 weeks, right? And I happen to be very blessed and have a beautiful community, and my girlfriends had a meal train for me, which is like the easiest thing to do in the world. You just like literally go online, and even if you don't have 17,000 friends, you'd be amazed. Like, people just want to make a meal for you or order a meal for you.
Yes.
That was the most important gift, because I got to make sure my kids were eating well. I was eating okay. I felt so loved. Social isolation has a really negative impact on health and on recovery. And so even though I didn't really want to like necessarily see people when they brought the food, and my best friend was like a total pit bull about it. She was like, "You are not to ring the doorbell. You will leave it at the back door. You will not speak to her."
We all need that person.
Yeah. And I was like, that's kind of harsh, but thank you. I felt the love, and that really was very healing to me. So that's an easy thing for people to do.
And as women, we have such a hard time accepting help. But I always say too, like, your birthday is not about you. It's about other people, giving them the opportunity to be there for you.
Yeah.
And so if you're going through something and you need a little bit of help, let people do it. It's how they show they love you.
Yeah. That was a big lesson for me. That was hard for me as a female physician, like to, I had to process a lot before I could even talk about it, because a lot of it was like, I just couldn't handle what your reaction might be. And I didn't, like, my staff didn't know why I took 2 weeks off.
Really?
My medical assistant did, my partners did, and our business manager did. But the rest of the staff didn't know, partly because I couldn't handle their feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then you end up having to comfort others through your
I couldn't
illness.
do it. I couldn't do it.
I remember that, if you could go back, I have to find the episode and put it in the show notes, but I talk about my BRCA gene, which gave me an 87% chance of having cancer, and my choices through that. And I remember when I had a bilateral mastectomy.
Well, I remember that time very clearly. Of course. Because I remember talking with you about it.
It was crazy. I think we met like right around there.
Right. We met before it. Maybe you were going through it, but we definitely talked a lot about it in terms of how are you going to manage yourself afterwards.
Yeah. And I think at the time, I had 2 kids under 2. So it was, I just was like, I'm going to plow through it like a bulldog, and I sort of did. And then it was actually well after that I sort of had to go through the emotions of it, because at the time it was like, you just do the things, you take the steps.
Well, but that is what happens. I mean, I can tell you from my own experience, like, you're very much caught up in the day-to-day and like sort of getting through the crisis.
Right.
And I think that that's a decent coping skill. Yeah. And then when it's quiet and you're not running to therapy every day and doing this and having to go to the doctor, that's when people start kind of having a lot of feelings. Right. It's scary.
Yeah. And do you remember I went to my OB? And I said, because he had told me, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about getting tested. And I said, what? My mother was 39 when she died. Like, why? What? And I knew that my sister, who's 14 years older, had, the mutation. And then he said, like, what are the odds? Or he said something like, what are the chances
really
or whatever?
High.
And I was like, 50-50. I'm like, I'm not a doctor here, but it seems like the right thing to do. And so I remember after, because it all happened so fast. It was like, you have this mutation. That was December. Then it was like, you need to stop breastfeeding. You need to get an MRI. Oh, look, there's a lump. Oh, look, we can't do a needle biopsy because it's too deep. You have to have a surgical biopsy. And at that point, I was like, why am I going to have a surgical biopsy?
You're a carrier. You're a known carrier.
Yeah. So I'm just like, go for it. And so it all was like spinning. And then I finally went back to him for, and I had just had a baby, the September before. And I went back and I said, listen, I had the mutation. This is what happened. And I had all these surgeries. And now I'm going to have a hysterectomy. And I said, and I think you did me a disservice, and you would do other people a disservice by not being up on this.
That's huge that you went back and gave him that feedback.
Well, he told me, you've been through a lot. You don't need to throw a parade for advocating for everybody else right now.
Well,
like,
that was 100%
why don't you just work through what you've been through? And I was like, wow. Yeah. And he was a young, very educated, at least I thought, he delivered my first two babies.
This speaks to what we were talking about earlier, that when people don't know themselves and they haven't done the work on themselves,
Yes.
like what doctor doesn't need to do work on themselves? I mean, we are really philanthropic, caring people, but in order to get through medical school and to have enough of an ego to do the kind of some of the stuff we do, you also have to have some pathology going on.
Yeah.
Like all humans. We are human. I'm not saying doctors are bad. Doctors are awesome. I'm so proud to be a doctor. But what?
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of the unexamined life. Like, you have not looked at yourself to say that to a person who is courageous enough to go through the experience and then come back and give you feedback. Because I think a lot of times what happens is when we hurt someone, they just peace out. They leave.
Yeah.
They don't come back and they don't give you the feedback on like, hey, this is what happened and this is how it affected me. Like, that's painful, but that's a learning opportunity.
Yeah. So I felt very strongly that I should tell him, and I did, but I think if we added,
I bet you affected him though.
I'm going to go with that. Like, I think maybe he was like, wow, I just lost a patient, and, maybe I should think about my actions, and I don't know. But I think that if we added a bonus step for October, it would be to advocate for yourself and to just take what you think and it feels bad in your gut, like this is not right. I mean, I was 34 years old when this all started. My mom was 39 when she died.
Yeah.
So not when she got cancer.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, I'm not doing that. And I had little babies and I was 3 when she died. And I was like, I'm not following her legacy and doing that. It's not going to happen. Like, I'm going to do whatever I have to do.
Yeah.
And so I advocated for myself, and I continue to do that and find doctors who believe me when I feel like I'm a little crazy, But anyway, so I think that we've given people, given women some positive things.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to see the pink everywhere and you're going to acknowledge the month, do it in a way that will really make an impact.
Exactly.
You're always making an impact.
Oh,
I love talking to you.
I love talking to you
Thank
too.
you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend. You know the one. She needs to hear this. And don't forget to hit subscribe. You'll get every future episode automatically downloaded to your favorite podcast app. No one has time to go searching for every episode. Do it now. You'll thank me later. Until next time, take care and keep thriving.
Thank you.